Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on what time zone you're in and where in the world you may be joining us from today. We're very happy to have you on our session to talk about why Simon from the Admissions and Programs Office. In this webinar, we're going to be covering a whole variety of different topics related to assignment education offerings and the benefits and value in assignment education. But to begin with, we would like to start off with some staff introductions. So currently speaking is Matt McCormick. I'm an associate director of MS Admissions. So I've been with Simon about 4.5 years now, and I primarily work with our specialized master's programs. So really excited to have a good session today and look forward to your questions. And I'll hand it over to my colleague Charisse to introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Charisse Kent, Associate Director of MBA Admissions here at Simon Business School, where I work primarily with admissions candidates for admission for the full-time MBA program. We're happy that you have joined us today.
Excellent. So just a few quick housekeeping items before we go into the agenda. One of the things that you're going to see on your screen is a Q&A box or bin that you can click on, and it will allow you to submit questions live during this session. Charisse and I will try to get to as many as we can. We would ask, just as a kind of a general rule in terms of the types of questions that you send, we would ask that you try to keep them to be types of questions that everybody can benefit from. If it is something that is really unique to your circumstances or your personal profile or something along those lines, we would ask that you instead direct that more offline to the admissions office, and we can work with you there. But we'd like this webinar to be kind of, an informational webinar to sort of kick off our next cycle, and appreciate that. We also wanted to say thank you to all of those who submitted questions to us in advance. Like I said, some of them may be incorporated into the presentation, and we'll try to answer as many as we can in our session today within the time allotted. So just to talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing, we're going to give you a little bit of an overview of Simon Business School and just talk about, in general terms, what our offerings are, and go a little bit more in depth into different types of resources available, different outcomes, and a number of other topics. We're going to be talking about the academics, diving in a little bit into each program just to kind of give some highlights on what each program consists of. Talk a little bit about the career outcomes and career resources. We have our Bennett Career Management Center is an excellent resource, and we'll talk to you a little bit about some of the things that you can utilize that office for as a Simon student. There are going to be some slides on co-curriculars, which will involve things like student clubs and organizations and other ways to get involved here at Simon Business School outside of just your academics. And then finally, at the end, we will wrap up and do our Q&A session. But like I said, you're welcome to send questions along during this presentation using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. And we'll, like I said, we'll try to get to as many as we can. So we want to, again, just start out by talking about why Simon Business School. So ultimately, we're looking at a few Simon highlights as being, we have a lot of top-ranked programs. We have a very collaborative culture, and I think that's something that, a lot of people have questions about. From one business school to another, it can vary a little bit. Here at Simon, we don't see ourselves as being competing with each other, but rather collaborative. And I think it's a good reflection on, the collaborative nature of the business world and in different preparations for different programs. We have a commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion here, and have a very diverse student body that we're very proud of. As far as program factors, we are very quant and analytics focused. You'll see it even written on the walls here at Simon Business School, the phrase unabashedly analytical, and it really speaks to the nature of these programs in the curriculum. The academic rigor is very high. They are all STEM designated, so whether we're talking about our MBA degree program or any of our MS specialized master's programs, every single one of them carries a STEM designation, which has a few distinct advantages, which we'll talk about. We also have a very small student to faculty ratio. What's nice about graduate school, too, for those of you that may be looking at coming into a graduate degree for the first time, is that the relationship that you have with your professors is a bit different, in the sense that it's less of a traditional instructor-to-student relationship, so much as it is more of a kind of mentor-type relationship. They're there to help you. Our professors are all industry professionals that come from many different backgrounds, but they all have office hours, and it really encourage a lot of discussion and engagement in the classroom that really allows students to benefit from a small student to faculty ratio here at Simon Business School in your academic and professional development. The community here is very, I would say, very special in many ways. But we have here in Rochester a location that really promotes affordability. It's one of the most reasonably priced cities that you're going to find here in the United States, while still being close to major cities for networking and other career employment opportunities. We have a small program size, as we talked about, and ultimately a very close-knit community. What's really great is that the University of Rochester itself is a pretty reasonably large place, but here at Simon Business School, just about everything that you need is all under one building, and it's really kind of something that fosters a very close-knit community. You work very closely with colleagues, and we have a lot of team-focused type of academics, and it's a unique part about the business school experience. So we want to talk a little bit about the kind of the STEM, the advantage of a STEM designation. So the STEM option for the full-time MBA program is available for any specialization. Also, all of our MS full-time programs are STEM designated. So essentially, this is a classification of a program that includes a certain amount of coursework that involves the acronym STEM, which many of you on this call probably are already familiar with, but it's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And so it ties into that analytical and quantitative focus that we talked about a little bit earlier. Everything that you do within your classroom is really designed for analysis. It's designed to prepare you for the real world type scenarios you might encounter in your respective fields and applying a more analytical lens to it. So this also signals a quantitative rigor to employers. And I think that it's pretty easy to see that these kinds of hard skills in quant are very in demand across the board. And to have the type of skills to be able to make actionable insights from data is just incredibly important. One final benefit for those of you that would be international students coming to study at Simon is that international students can work in the US for up to 36 months in a STEM eligible job. And so what this means is that there is by default kind of a period after graduation. I won't go too into detail about this, but it's called OPT, or optional practical training. So you have about 12 months by default for most programs in the United States. And then what this does is it allows you to apply for up to a 24-month extension on top of that for a total of 36 months. It's another really great opportunity to get some on-the-ground, hands-on type experience here working in the United States. So I wanted to also just cover a little bit about our rankings. And these rankings are strongly driven by our full-time MBA program. We are in the top number 32 best business school by U.S. News and World Report is a very recent ranking that we have. Our full-time master's program is actually ranked in this as well with the Financial Times. We're also number 30 for our MBA in the Financial Times. Bloomberg Business Week, we've been steadily moving up in Bloomberg rankings. We're in the top 25 for best business in the U.S. for business schools. We're also number 2 for the same rankings for return on investment among top 25 business schools. And something we're especially proud of was we're in the top 10. We're at number 6 for most diverse MBA programs among top 50 business schools. So a lot of these rankings are ones that we have consistently applied a lot of talent from both faculty, staff, and everybody in between to really make a focus on moving up and improving our program in the sort of Meliora, ever better type spirit.
Thanks, Matt. So in terms of scholarships and financial aid, we are very generous with the merit aid opportunities here at Simon Business School. Merit-based scholarships are awarded to 90% of students enrolled in the full-time MBA and 70% of students enrolled in the MS programs. There is no separate application for merit-based scholarships. They are equally available to both international as well as domestic candidates. When you complete your application for admission, there's a box that says, I want to be considered for scholarships. All you do is check that box and we will consider your application for scholarship. So essentially, your application for admission is your application for scholarships. Additionally, we offer federal loans to those who are eligible to apply, including for federal direct loans, subsidized, and direct plus loans. International students have additional resources available for loans, and more information is available on our website, specifically about financial aid and the resources for international students beyond our merit-based scholarships. We are located in Western upstate New York, about 6 hours drive from New York City, about a 45-minute flight from New York City. We are good-sized city, second most affordable housing market in the United States of America. We were actually voted number 4 in terms of being a foodie city here in the United States, and I can attest to the various options and types of food that are available in our city. And we were voted the number 2 most friendliest city in the United States. This region of New York is home to some of the best wineries in the world. And definitely lots of outdoor activities available, hiking at Letchworth State Park. We're an hour from Niagara Falls. So there's a lot of geographic diversity to this area that people from all over the world come to enjoy. So hopefully this is an opportunity to explore a little bit about upstate New York, and you can do your research on the University of Rochester, as well as Rochester as a city to locate to for the 2 years or 1 year of your program. At Simon, we take an approach to learning that is called the integrated student experience. That means academics combined with research, combined with your co-curricular activities. We're looking at all of those things to create the best integrated student experience. Academically speaking, we offer core courses that are really going to be the foundation for your education here. We offer a lot of electives and minors so that you can kind of dibble and dabble into other courses of interest, and experiential learning opportunities, which include our internships for both MS and MBA students. The career search process at Simon takes place very early. We start very early in helping you understand your goals and helping you understand how you can navigate this career search process. In addition, we have career action teams, and every student at Simon receives an academic advisor to help them one-on-one, as well as a career advisor to help them one-on-one in navigating the right approach you can take to securing an internship and ultimately a full-time job. And lastly, we offer co-curricular activities, including our student clubs and organizations. Our students participate in case competitions, organizations like our Vision Consulting Team, our Simon Finance Club, Meliora Fund, are opportunities for students to engage in activities that really enhance their academic and cultural experiences here at Simon. This is just a study plan sample for the full-time MBA. You will note that pre-fall for the full-time MBA, our classes start in July. Students begin by taking courses like managerial economics, structural problem solving, and introduction to probability for finance in that July session. August starts our fall A, which goes from August until the end of October, where you will take 3 additional courses. And then from October through December, you will take 3 additional courses. And you will know, as seen here on screen, that fall B gives you the opportunity to begin taking electives. So you get electives in your first fall semester here at Simon. Spring A split into 2 terms as well, where you have a few more classes for spring A, and then spring B, again, electives in both of those terms. So during your first year in the full-time MBA program, you have 4 electives available to you, which are great opportunities to explore some other areas beyond one of the 10 specializations. The summer internship between year 1 and 2 is required for the full-time MBA program. And again, that career process is one that we're going to help you through. And then when you return for fall 2, year 2, you come back in August. And as you can see, there's a lot of electives available for you to choose from. And that open curriculum really allows you to drill down further into one of your 10 specializations or explore one of our 6 minors. So our core curriculum really sets you up for success with a lot of the broad-based skills necessary to have that analytical background to succeed in the business landscape. And then you can add electives to that to really explore some other areas of interest.
Great. Thank you, Charisse. So transitioning a little bit back into MS academic highlights. In this slide, this sort of covers just the high-level aspects of each of our MS programs. We now have 5 specialized master's programs. So that includes our MS in accountancy, our MS in finance, our MS in marketing analytics, and our MS in business analytics. And finally, our newest program that we're launching really the application for this year is our Master's of Science in AI in Business. Just to touch upon a few of the points that are here for each of the programs, the MS Accountancy program is a little bit unique in the sense that it is our one very certification-oriented program. It is the only program on this screen that has actual prerequisites, and that's because of the CPA exam requirements. It is still a 1 year program. Each one of these programs are all 1 year. The finance program has a focus on quantitative finance and a little bit of Python that's worked in for things like options and futures, risk, and there are classes in risk management and investments. The MS in marketing analytics and the MS in business analytics have quite a bit of similarity between the two. You'll notice that there is a bit of overlap in some of the techniques and some of the methodologies, and even the coursework itself. You'll be in class together. The difference really here is that the MS in marketing analytics focuses on things like digital marketing, price analytics, and pricing. And it's really more of the application of analytics for the uses of marketing. And that's where, especially in the electives, is where these two programs diverge. A lot of the core courses are pretty much identical. When it comes to the business analytics program, it's different in the sense that it is a little bit broader umbrella program. It's more for using big data across a variety of different industries. And at this point, really any industry that you can think of that comes to mind, there is a need for someone who can go through the data that's collected and make actionable insights from it. So there's coursework in data management for analytics, spreadsheet modeling, really the deeper dive into Excel, and then also things like predictive analytics with Python. There's going to be, statistical analysis using R and a number of other things. But these two programs have quite a bit in common, but where they diverge again is more in the electives and then the types of electives that students go and take and have a little bit different type career outcomes. The newest program here, the MS in AI and Business, is going to take some of those components of the analytics program, but have much more of a robust artificial intelligence component to it. As this is really, as we know, an up and coming technology, and it's not a matter of if, but when, how it will work itself into various industries. And so what this program is aiming to do is provide, a lot more detail on the use of AI in business and how it's going to change different industries and how it's going to change the business world. And so this program is, like I said, new for this year. The curriculum is new for this year, but it does have elements of some of the other programs, but with more of an AI kind of focus to it, which is something we're very excited about. So I wanted to talk briefly about the Bennett Career Management Center methodology. And so this slide really shows the approach that we take, that you can see it begins all from onboarding. You have an opportunity during the onboarding phase. And so this would take place effectively before your academics actually kick off. So with an offer of admission, and if you choose to enroll, the onboarding will be made available sometime generally in the spring. And it involves a number of different modules that allow for some career discovery. You think about this as a snapshot in time, and this is true for both the MBA and the MS programs. It's a snapshot in time to better understand where you are now and what you value and what you're looking for. And in a sense, allows you to put some milestones in place so that you have a way of keeping yourself on track as you navigate through your program and are thinking about the job search, career search, and the career resources as you go along. You'll have an opportunity also to meet your allies in the Bennett Center team during that time. The next phase of that comes during orientation. So at the point where you're arriving on campus, you really get more immersed into some of these different resources and get an exploration into some of these different resources. So the completion of the onboarding allows you to begin to set up one-on-one appointments with the Bennett Career Center advisor. And it's an opportunity to check in periodically. As you can see, the third phase is kind of an ongoing relationship. And that's really, I think, speaks to the nature of this office. It is an ongoing professional relationship that you have with the Bennett Career Center. So this could be Bennett career peers who are current students from different industries who can give you specialized guidance. There's career action teams. There are full-time staff and advisors. And it can be a check-in that involves anything from just getting started to maybe I have an offer and I'm trying to negotiate an offer to maybe I have multiple offers and I'm trying to decide between them. That's really where the Bennett Center comes in. They also have relationships with the outside world as well to put on different professional development workshops or other types of interactions that you can have with career recruiters or corporate recruiters rather. And so the idea is that they're your partners in success for professional development. And then ultimately outbound, you're connection with the Bennett Career Center really kind of goes even beyond that. I mean, to have such an engaged alumni network is something that we're very proud of. And I think it speaks to one of the things that adds a lot of value into the Simon student experience and the value proposition for Simon education. It's not just the academics, but this component as well, the alumni network and the connections and the networking opportunities that you have. And this is just sort of an overview of the general methodology that our Bennett Center uses.
In regards to the outcomes for our full-time MBA students, our class of 2023 did very well with an average total compensation of $177,000 US dollars. The average starting salary around 140 with the average the mean signing bonus of around 38.9. So our students, the total compensation puts them in a very, very good situation financially. Many of our MBA grads will move into consulting, finance, and marketing. Pretty even distribution, about 30% going into consulting, about 30% into finance and accounting, 26% into marketing or sales. Generally speaking, other areas such as diversity or people management may fall under general management or other, and we have a number of students going into that direction as well. Overall, industry-wise, our students are represented in technology, consumer product goods, marketing, healthcare, pretty wide variety of places our students have the opportunity to engage in, with most of them working for multinational Fortune 500 corporations. As you can see, many of our students are located throughout the United States of America. We're not really in a situation where students find themselves only working in Rochester upon graduation. Our full-time MBA students are within the Northeast. That would include Boston and New York City, the Mid-Atlantic, the DC metro area, Philadelphia, all the way over to about 27% of our students being out west between San Francisco, Seattle, and other places. So you're really not limited in where you can work within the United States. And 100% of our graduate hires by region, this is the distribution of where they are located presently. You can see big fours like your EY and your Deloitte, all the way up to finance companies like JP Morgan Chase, State Street, and your tech companies such as Google, Microsoft, Dell, and Amazon. So a pretty wide selection with a great variety of career outcomes.
So to talk a little bit about MS career outcomes, what we did in this slide is kind of give you a little bit more sort of overall data that was an average across 2021 to 2023. At the moment, our 2024 class is still working their way through the program, most of which will be graduating at the end of this year in December. However, as you can see consistently across the board between all of our MS programs, and MS and AI is obviously not here just because it's the first year of it, but the ones that we have a long-standing with here between accountancy, business analytics, marketing analytics, and finance, across the board, a lot of these numbers speak to, I would argue, the hard work of all of the students and the high caliber of students that we see coming into these programs in combination with the usage of the resources from the Bennett Center. So a lot of these are a lot of our main metrics that you'll see on our career outcomes reports. And there is a career outcomes report that's available, and the most recent one's coming up here very soon, if not already launched, to be able to look through a little bit more in detail about these outcomes. But the methodology typically revolves around 6 months post-graduation, and then starting salary, and then plus signing bonus. So you can see across programs, again, consistently strong year over year. This is something that speaks to, I think, also just the connectedness that Simon has to the outside, with the world of accounting or analytics or finance. And, given our proximity to major hubs, like, for example, Boston and New York City and a number of other cities, you get kind of the best of both worlds. As Sharissa talked about earlier, I mean, the location that we have gives you that balance between really affordable cost of living, but then also great connections that you can make through networking and other types of opportunities in a lot of the cities in the Northeast, all of which are really either, about a 5-6 hour drive or about an hour flight to get to from here, from Rochester. The campus itself is also right across the river from the airport. So lots of networking opportunities when it comes to things that can lead to really great career outcomes for students. This is a little bit more higher level look, and unsurprisingly, just like similar to MBA, the Northeast is our most popular region for those that are pursuing employment in North America. You'll notice, though, that there is still a sizable population that go out to the West Coast. And again, major cities, LA, San Francisco, Seattle, and increasingly, places in the Southwest like Texas. A lot of tech firms are kind of moving their um, headquarters and operations over to Texas from California. So there's some shifts in different markets and different places. But I think given our New York location, Northeast does tend to still be the most popular. And likewise, you'll see some big names on here, some big four between EY, Deloitte, KPMG, and a number of others. So it really is, kind of a series of strong outcomes, and the MS programs are, really designed to be kind of hyper focused on really getting you. They're traditionally kind of the pre-experienced master type program for those that are starting their career, but gives you a really great foundation to go into some really great opportunities with, big name companies like you see on this screen. So one other element to your education outside of the Bennett Career Center, we talked a little bit about the methodology there. This is another office that we refer to as it's the Ainsley Center of Student Engagement. However, OSE for short, they are your partners for the student experience, really. So they provide services that range anywhere from advising to student life to experiential learning, which we'll talk about here in a moment. So when it comes to anything from getting settled in Rochester to getting through orientation, they're largely the office that handles that. Their vision is, again, to be responsible for your student satisfaction, and they're your partner in success on the student side. So you have the career partners with the Bennett Center, and then you have your student student success and satisfaction here with the OSE office. Their values are to provide the highest level of service. They're here to treat everyone fairly, respectfully, and with compassion. We realize that many of you are taking on a huge task by coming to the United States to study for an extended period of time. That's no small feat, and it can be a lot to work through, and that's why we have a lot of resources to help you with that too, to help you feel supported, to know that you'll be supported throughout your journey here at Simon. We're here to they're here to provide open and timely communication. They'll always have a point of contact for you, an advisor that you can reach out to if you run into any problems of any kind. And they're also here to have fun and celebrate your success. They're really kind of an all-encompassing office from the student experience. And you kind of make a transition as you go through the admissions and enrollment process from the admissions office over to our colleagues at the OSE office. And really, that's a great relationship that we have. And they're the ones that are kind of an ongoing resource during your time here at Simon. They also oversee any student clubs and organizations. So if you do get involved with any extracurriculars, they are kind of a main point of contact there as well.
Thanks, Matt. And so touching on the experiential learning opportunities here at Simon, we believe that you learn by doing. And some of those activities include our project-based courses. For example, our first year MBA students have the opportunity to engage in a project that lasts for the duration of the spring semester. And many times the concepts that they learn, that they're presented with, give them a leg up on their internship competition, who often in other programs don't have the exposure to some of these same concepts until their second year. So it really allows our students to stand out. We offer international immersions, which last for about a week or so, various locations throughout the world. In the past, we've done South Africa, Japan. This year, we are anticipating visiting other countries such as Singapore, Brazil. We're doing one in New York City. So these are great opportunities to academically as well as culturally explore different regions of the world with your classmates. Case competitions. Our Vision Consulting is an in-house consulting firm that operates for the purposes of being able to assist businesses within the Rochester area who need help with large-scale projects. Meliora Fund is a $2 million managed fund that our students are able to kind of understand investments and how to grow our money. And our venture fund, which is a fund that invests in upcoming startup capital required for many small to medium-sized enterprises and entrepreneurial startups. Application deadlines. The application deadline for round 1 is October 15th, round 2, January 5th, round 3, February 15th, round 4, March 31st, and round 5, May 1st. There are 5 application deadlines to give candidates the opportunity to submit a strong application to be considered for admission. Deadline 1, October 15th. The round 1 period runs from September 1 through October 15. Round 2, October 16th through January 5th. Round 3, January 6th through February 15th. Round 4, February 16th through March 31st, and round 5, April 1 through May 1. So there are plenty of opportunities to submit an application to Simon. When you submit your application for round 1, you will receive a decision by December 15th and so forth. So the opportunity is there. And for those who are listening to this webinar live, an application fee waiver will be added to your account within the next 1 to 2 business days. When you submit your application, you will just bypass the payment screen. It's pretty simple, straightforward, nothing else you need to do. So the next steps that you can take, you can scan the QR code on the screen or type in the address. You can also visit our website where you can connect with us. You have the opportunity to request information. You can request to speak to a student. You can request to check your eligibility. There are also additional events and webinars online virtually that will be available coming very soon. And those archives are always available. And our podcasts, we have a Simon podcast that is always available to listen and download various episodes addressing different admissions topics. So thank you for joining us today. And hopefully we've answered your questions about why Simon. We are now going to open up the session for questions. We have questions that have been dropped in the chat that we will continue to answer there, as well as questions that we will answer verbally. So Matt and I will go back and forth and answer as many as we can in the time that we have remaining. And again, as it relates to your questions, we will be answering those that are more open for information that everyone can benefit from. We can't get into specific profile questions regarding your application, resubmissions of applications, or your profile. So we will do our best to answer those questions that are for the benefit of everyone on the call. And if you have a more specific question, as we mentioned, you can check out our website and connect with us, send an email to the admissions office that can be more specifically answered to your needs. All right, Matt, any questions you want to jump off with?
Sure. Thank you. And likewise, following up on what Sheree said, thank you to everybody who's been sending in questions along the way here and all of you who submitted pre-submitted questions. I think one that I've seen come up a few times has to do with the acceptance of 3-year bachelor's degrees. I know that this is common in some countries, especially notably India. So the answer to that question is pretty much across the board. We do accept 3-year bachelor's degrees. I know that some universities in the United States have some kind of bridge program requirement where you have to do a 4th year, or you do some kind of postgraduate diploma, something like that for an extra year. That's not necessarily required for our programs. As long as it's coming from an accredited university, we do indeed accept 3-year degrees as acceptable for entry into our programs.
Another question I've seen frequently is it relates to test waivers. So there's no waiver that we need to provide for you. GRE, GMAT scores are both optional for submission to the MS and the MBA programs. If you are seeking a test waiver, simply complete the application. Within the application for admission, you will have the opportunity to indicate that you are seeking a test waiver. There's nothing additional that you need to provide. If candidates do not submit a test score, what we will evaluate primarily will include your academic performance, your overall academic performance, and specifically your performance in your quantitative related courses such as calculus or statistics, programming languages, economics, microeconomics, and things of that nature. So if you are lacking in a lot of courses that are quantitative in nature or analytical in nature, you may want to consider taking a GMAT or a GRE. Alternatively, we'll also look at things such as CFA, PMP, and other certifications through accredited institutions.
Great. Yeah, I was going to say, I've seen some questions also related to, in terms of the background that you have. So pretty much, speaking for the MS side especially, we see students coming in from many different academic and professional backgrounds. So there is not necessarily a requirement, for example, if you were looking at, let's say, the MS finance program, that you have to have a finance background. It's certainly helpful, and many students that are in the program or come into the program with some kind of either internship experience or maybe even some limited work experience, but it is not necessarily a hard requirement. Kind of like what Sharice was saying, that really quantitative classes are very helpful, and there's something that will be looked at by the admissions committee for both MBA and MS to better understand your background and quantitative abilities, given that our programs are very analytical in nature. But it is not necessarily a hard requirement. In certain circumstances, the admissions committee might make some recommendations to perhaps study up on certain things like maybe Python coding or R or any number of different math reviews. It's helpful either way, just to kind of go through some of the basics before you get in to have a good foundation to work off of. But it is we kind of pride ourselves on bringing people into the fold that have so many different talents and other abilities that we can see. Like I feel like every year we have a band that gets together. We get musicians and artists, and it just adds another rich element to our program and our student body here. I don't know, Sharice, did you have anything on the MBA side about quant?
Yeah, I think you answered it perfectly. We're gonna look very holistically at what you bring to the table. The MBA program being a little bit different in terms of the majority of candidates will have a more substantial work experience, on average 5.5, anywhere between 3 and 10 years of work experience. And so you may have quantitative functions within your job as well. So don't let that deter you, but do consider that it is a quantitatively heavy program and you want to be prepared. I've had a few questions as it relates to the essay. So there are 2 essays for both the MBA and the MS application. The application processes are very similar. The 2 essay requirements, the first will ask you about your short-term goals, why you're interested in Simon, essentially what has brought you to the decision to apply to the program. The second essay, 500-word maximum as well, will ask you to kind of share how you will contribute to the diversity of the Simon Business School community. Simon Business School is one of the most diverse MBAs in the top 50. Additionally, there is a third optional essay. That optional essay is there to provide us with information that you feel would enhance your application. It should not be a repeat of what's in the first 2 essays or a repeat of your resume. It is the opportunity to provide additional information, context, or just share with us something that you feel is very important for the evaluation of your application. So those are the essay requirements: 2 required essay, 1 optional essay. The questions are in the application, and it is the same questions for the MS and the MBA.
Absolutely. I had another question that's been coming up a couple times about related to transcripts and a WES evaluation. So for those of you that may not be familiar with that, WES evaluation is essentially a service that picks credentials from other countries and converts them over to what's a 4-point scale, which is the most common here in the United States. So the answer to that question is not necessarily. Generally, we can do many reviews in-house, provided that your transcripts have some kind of a scale that we can work with, and then some kind of idea behind how the grading system works. And a lot of transcripts that we receive have something, the way that they're printed has something from the university that explains the methodology behind the grading system. So the majority, I'd say that even an overwhelming majority of transcripts we can work with in-house and figure out in terms of how it would equate to a US scale. But in certain circumstances, if we're really kind of at a loss or it's just maybe a very unusual grading system, we may ask on a case-by-case basis for something like a WES evaluation. But again, we'd be reaching out to candidates directly, and it's not very common. We can work with most grading scales. The other question I just wanted to rapid fire was about the length of the programs. So MS is a program that is by default a 1-year program. However, it does have an internship and a non-internship track option. So if you choose the non-internship track, it's pretty much 10 months to a year, roughly, calendar months, that is. The internship track extends it a little bit further. So for example, if you were applying for a fall 2025 start, you'd be graduating sometime in May of 2026 if you were non-internship track, and then you'd be graduating it more at the end of the year if you were a internship track student. So you have the summer to do the internship and come back. And likewise, MBA is a 2-year program, so it is a little bit different from the MS programs.
Great questions, guys. As it relates to graduate assistantships, that's one that we often see. So very often, various institutions in the US offer graduate assistantships to assist in paying for your studies. Traditionally, for those who are unfamiliar with it, graduate assistants will receive some sort of compensation in addition to their coursework being paid for by the university. We do not in Simon Business School offer graduate assistantships. The University of Rochester, has 6 colleges. There are some graduate assistantships offered through the university and other colleges or departments within University of Rochester. I would not depend on getting a graduate assistantship to pay for your education assignment. 2 reasons, one of which you must first be accepted, and then you would apply to the assistantship process. That may not happen until the spring. Which could basically derail your opportunities for understanding how you're going to pay. Secondly, for our MBA candidates, given the nature of our program, the requirement for most assistantships will exceed what we would expect in terms of your ability to work. So working 20, 30, 40 hours a week is not advised within the full-time MBA program, even if you were able to secure an assistantship opportunity because of the rigors of the program. So although there are some limited graduate assistantships at the university, we encourage you to not consider that in terms of your options of payment at Simon.
Great. And a question about actually an important question about can I apply to more than one program at a time? And so this is a question that does sometimes come up. So the answer to that is no. And the reason for that is that when you look at each individual program by itself, they have vastly different outcomes. And so the idea here is that this is not different than, for example, an undergraduate degree where you might switch majors or do that kind of thing. That is not how graduate degrees work. So graduate degrees are especially when we're talking about, so speaking from MS to start, it is a very short program relative to a 3 or 4 year undergraduate degree. It's only 1 year in length. So we really expect that students are doing their research to really figure out which program makes the most sense relative to their experience, their background, and ultimately what their career goals are. Same is true. You can't, there's no application for both MS and MBA in the same term. So we're limited to one program per year. So, that's why we try to host a lot of different webinars on the intricacies of each of these programs for students to have all the information they need to find the application for the program that best meets their needs. And likewise, going back to the point earlier about, backgrounds, I did see a couple questions about, I have this, does this disqualify me, or this background? So again, personal profile questions, we really ask you to go to the admissions office offline here. But as a general rule, we have class profiles that we post on our website for each individual program. So what this does is it gives you the middle 80% of data that we get from the most recent incoming class. And this includes things like test scores, GPAs, age demographics, countries of origin, a whole bunch of other things. So that gives you an idea of what our class composition looks like, but it also gives you a chance to kind of take your profile and look at what's competitive in our programs. And it varies a little bit depending on which one we're talking about. But across the board, I would say also, just because we give the middle 80% doesn't mean that we don't look at candidates that fall maybe on one or more characteristics outside that 80%. So it's not necessarily disqualifying yourself up front by looking at this, but we encourage you to reach out and have that conversation with us if you're unclear or you're, kind of concerned about something. And also, if you're going through the application process, anything that you're, unclear or uncertain about is an opportunity to kind of address in one of your essays too, to just kind of put it out in the open so that the admissions committee has the full context of your story and understands where you're coming from.
Yeah, and I'll kind of piggyback on that from an MBA perspective. The average MBA candidate has about 5.5 years of work experience. The middle 80%, usually 2.5 to 9 years. So if you're a more recent graduate with, say, less than 3 years of work experience, then I would encourage you to consider taking a look at the MS opportunities. You can still apply for the MBA, but as Matt said, really take a look at those profiles to see where you may fit best based on your years of work experience, with the knowledge that the full-time MBA on average is about 3 to a little under 9 years of work experience is the middle 80%. So that means there are some students below that 3 years and some students slightly above that 9 years who may gain entry, but those are going to be very competitive spots. That optional essay is your opportunity to share with us why, although outside of the traditional profile, you would still be considered a competitive candidate.
Question here about the number of intakes. So all of our programs have one intake each year. So there is no spring intake for our full-time programs, just to clarify that. So you'd be looking at kind of a July or August start potentially.
terms of GPAs and test scores and requirements, if you visit the profile for each program, as Matt has outlined, they vastly differ. We don't have requirements for GPAs and test scores, but if you do take them, you can check our profile to see if it's competitive. And if your score after taking the GRE or the GMAT is competitive within that profile, feel free to forward it as a part of your application. But each program definitely has different areas in which the candidates will succeed as it relates to the GRE and GMAT. And in terms of TOEFL, IELTS, Duolingo, and test waivers, if you completed at least 3 years of instruction at an institution where your primary language of instruction was English, you do not need to submit an IELTS, TOEFL, or Duolingo. Again, if you completed your degree in English and you attended your university for at least 3 years, you will not need to submit IELTS, TOEFL, or Duolingo.
Kind of building on that, we had some questions about sort of how you're submitting your documents. And so essentially, when you're going through the application process, we're talking about any official documents, whether that's transcripts, test scores, or the like. What we would ask is that really the best way to do this is to put everything into the application itself. And we're going to have actually a webinar that is going to be more on this topic at a later time along the lines of application tips, where we'll talk more in depth about this. But you can use test taker copies. You can use, unofficial copies, at least to start with, to just for the purposes of reviewing your application. We're going to ask for official copies at a later time, which is a bridge that we would cross, if you're offered admission and you choose to enroll, and all those other things fall into place first. But generally, for the purposes of applying to Simon Business School, we would ask that everything be uploaded into one place in the application, and understand that generally, once you hit that submit button, that's your application's all set. It's not, you can't generally go back in and add things to it afterward. And even if you could, there's no guarantee that the admissions committee is going to be able to see it prior to the decision-making process. So we ask also that your application be complete. So if you're still waiting on scores and things like that, you want to have a complete application before you hit the submit button. So we would generally recommend applying in the earliest round that you feel comfortable that your application is as good and as complete as it can be.
I had a question as it relates to the MBA. The full-time MBA program offers 10 different specializations. So you do choose one of those specializations, but we do offer 6 additional minors. So if you're looking at the full-time MBA program, you should position yourself to choose one of the majors, but also understand that there are a variety of electives that you can choose to take in addition to the minors that we offer within the full-time MBA.
On the MS side, there's something we launched recently that kind of sort of are not exactly the equivalent to that MBA side, but something that is new for as of this past year are these certificates of advanced achievement. And so this is something that was announced in past coming months for students that were coming in this year. But it is something that we intend on continuing into the future, which is not something that really impacts either the cost of the program or the length of the program, as a lot of this is kind of built in a sense. But the way that the certificates of advanced achievement work is that they're essentially a series of 3 classes. In many cases, 1 or 2 of them are built into the core series of your classes. So you'd be taking them anyway. But you would have that plus some of the electives would be specific classes that you could choose. And by doing that, you would actually be picking up an additional certificate. So for example, in finance, it would be in banking and AI. So investment banking and AI. So it's kind of a nice additional credential that you can pick up. And each MS program, there's more detail on this on the website, but each MS program has these certificates of advanced achievement, I should say, that are kind of built into the program and are very easy to achieve, and something that you can do along the way as you come through the program.
Great. We have about 10 minutes left, and we will continue to answer as many general questions as we can as it relates to the application process. In terms of merit scholarships, I've seen that question a few times. Again, there's no separate application process to apply for scholarships here at Simon for the MBA or the MS. The application, which will include your essays, your resume, your work history, your academic performance, your test scores, if they are included, the video essay, all of these elements are taken into consideration for first acceptance and then taken into consideration for scholarship. If you are awarded a scholarship for the full-time MBA program, you would receive notification of that scholarship with your accept letter. Again, there's no separate process. So the stronger your application for admission, the better opportunities you may have for a scholarship. Scholarships on the full-time MBA side go to about 90% of the students enrolled in the full-time MBA, foreign and domestic. Additionally, scholarships for the full-time MBA range between 40% tuition all the way up to full tuition. So there are full tuition opportunities available, full tuition merit scholarships. In full disclosure, those are incredibly competitive. So if you are aiming for a full tuition scholarship, it's going to be very hard to achieve that without a very strong test score as a data point to include with your very strong work experience and academic performance as an undergrad. So while there are full-time MBA full tuition scholarships, they are going to be incredibly competitive, and just put your best application forward with all of the pieces to make you stand out.
Yeah, I would echo the same sentiments on the MS side too. We do have scholarships that go out to approximately 80% of applicants. There is actually, again, kind of a way to signal that in the application itself, and it comes to the MS committee to do that evaluation at the same time. But it is based on a snapshot in time, your competitiveness to relative to the MS profile, the program that you're applying for. But also likewise, we do have generally one Meliora fellowship for each program per year. So it comes with a full tuition scholarship. However, again, it's incredibly competitive. You have to have a very strong profile to be in the running for that. So please keep that in mind. And again, it speaks to why you really want to be thoughtful in putting your application together and making it as strong, as complete as it can be. But most students do receive some type of merit-based assistance. So a lot of this is driven by, again, the competitiveness, and it takes into a variety of factors, just like the MBA admissions committee does. We look at, anything from your experiences, which I did see a question about for MS. Internship, yes, that does count as experience, given that many MS students are generally very early in their career, or in many cases coming directly from an undergraduate degree. The MS admissions committee does indeed look at different types of internships that you've had as relevant experience, or potentially full-time experience if you've had it post your undergraduate degree. But that is just one of many factors. It's not just numbers. It's not just GPAs. It's not just test scores. It's kind of a whole variety of different things outside of that. It's your essays. It's the interview or the video essay in the case of MS. So it's kind of a complex equation, I guess, is what I'm getting at, across many different factors that we look at during the review process.
Great. So in terms of the test waiver, just wanted to touch on that again. No separate test waiver process. It's in the application. Just indicate you're seeking a test waiver in the application. In terms of the application fee waiver, it will be added to your account within the next 1 to 2 business days. And then when you go to apply, you will just bypass the payment screen. Very simple, very straightforward. So no issues there. The application for fall 2025 will open September 1st, with the first deadline being October 15th. And when I say add it to your account, once you signed up for this webinar with an email, that generated an account on our side that we will add to the application fee waiver to that email address.
Great. I saw a question about recommendations. So again, we'll host a webinar here in the near future that will be diving more into application tips. But generally speaking, we don't ask for nor accept letters of recommendation. Rather, there is a section in the application where you can enter the information for recommenders. So that's really about all we collect. And the admissions committee may reach out if necessary, but we'll reach out to the candidate first if we had a need to contact your references. There is no need to submit reference letters or letters of recommendation, anything like that. And also, by entering the information in our application, your recommenders are not going to receive anything on their end. It's just for us to collect that data if the admissions committee needs to use it to reach out to recommenders. But again, we'll reach out to you first if that's needed, so you can let your recommenders know.
Okay, we have about 5 more minutes for your questions. And again, trying to answer all the questions that are more general in nature to provide you with some good information. There will be other webinars, as Matt just mentioned, about the application process and other subjects. So definitely continue to check our website, check your email to see which other webinars could be beneficial to you. terms of stipends, I did have a question as it relates to the scholarships and stipends. There are limited stipend opportunities. There's a fielding fellowship for full-time MBA students that does come with a living stipend. Again, that's going to go out to maybe 2 to 3% of our MBA applicants. So if you qualify, you would be notified.
Oh, a good question here. Asking about, do I need to be proficient in Python or R before applying for business analytics or any analytics program? The answer to that is no. And actually, our MS programs, while I will say that is definitely helpful if you have a background in Python and R, since those are a few tools that are used frequently. Same would be true for, I think, pretty much any program here, that you'll have coursework that are going to incorporate those kinds of tools. But having at least a basic understanding of how they operate and how to navigate them is good. On a case-by-case basis, the admissions committee does sometimes recommend that. And if you are offered admission and you don't have that in your background, either through your job or academics or anything like that, you might see that as a recommendation. It's just it's a way to kind of, again, get a foundation before you enter the program, but it is not a hard requirement nor a prerequisite or anything along those lines for the program, but it is just a helpful thing to have.
Good question about work experience and what we consider. So it is the work, when we say work experience, we're actually referring to your undergraduate degree completion date. So for the MBA program, for example, someone who graduated in 2020, looking to start in 2025, we would consider that 5 years of experience because it is 5 years since they completed their undergraduate degree. So if you graduated in, 2020, 2025 is 5 years. 2021, 2025 would be 4 years. So when looking at the profiles, consider your graduation, and what you've done since graduation is really what's considered work experience.
Well, questions about the internships. So, and this varies a little bit whether we're talking about MS or MBA, but on the MS side, there is, again, a dedicated internship track, as we talked about a little bit earlier in the presentation. It's an option that you would choose up front. So it's not something that you have to know at the point where you apply to the program, but at the point where if you're offered admission and do choose to enroll, we have to get you set up with at least a track. And it's final for the moment, especially if you're an international student who may have to go through the student visa process. There's a lot of paperwork involved that we have to make sure is consistent. So we want to make sure that you have an option that is kind of that you're sticking with, at least for the time being, largely because it affects the overall length of the program, as we mentioned. So it is something that you can discuss with your advisor, but I would say overwhelmingly it's a popular option. The internship is not a requirement for graduating, if that makes sense. So when it comes to the internship track, there are other options outside of that. I know internships are outside the university, so there's different variables involved, but there will be a lot of resources that will help you with that process. It would typically take place over the summer leading into the fall after the 1 year of the primary part of the program. And then students would be coming back in the following fall for just a kind of a final class and an exam for the MS programs. But it is something that can be very valuable, especially if you're looking at coming to the United States to kind of understand, the business world here and also get some hands-on experience.
In terms of scholarships, I had a question as it relates to the percentage of scholarships for international MBA students. I don't have the breakdown on the percentage of scholarships specifically for internationals. For the full-time MBA, I can tell you that for last class, 47% of our students are international from about 30 different countries. Within our MBA, we accept 100 to 120 students per class. 90% of the students in the full-time MBA receive a scholarship. So essentially, if you are accepted into the full-time MBA and ask for merit scholarship, you will likely receive such. So 47% of our international students, if all 47% needed a scholarship, they would have received it. The challenge is getting into the program. It's a very competitive program. Put forward your strongest application, and the scholarship award will be indicated at the time of acceptance based on how competitive it is against the rest of the class. So we appreciate your time today. We appreciate the questions, lots of great questions, and hopefully through the webinar as well as this session, you've been able to get some questions answered as it relates to applying to Simon for the MBA or the MS program. Again, the application opens September 1st. You will receive notification of your application fee waiver within the next 1 to 2 business days. The first first deadline is October 15th to apply for either program. Anything else to add, Matt?
No, I think that's good. Thank you to everybody for joining today. We really appreciate your time and looking forward to seeing you on the next one.